Welcome to Brew with Miss Baritone. I'm your host, Chicky Baritone, and this is my podcast. I'm gonna give it to you all black, no creamer, no sugar, no honey. So join me as I brew up some life-giving conversations with some dope people. Welcome to Brew Miss Baritone. I am very excited about my next guest. This is Isom Lowman, and me and Isom go way back. I'm talking about high school way back, Spring Valley way back, Columbia, South Carolina way back. Right. And he is my guest today. Isom is an entrepreneur, but he also is a franchisor. And I just want to say welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes.
To be here. For sure.
So how you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm good.
Yeah, we're chopping up early like we ain't seen each other since high school.
Right. Exactly, because it truly has been that long.
Right. Yeah, it's been that long, but we still like family, like,
yes.
Like ain't missed a beat. So happy to be here.
Absolutely. That's what we do.
Right.
So, Isom, take me back to after you graduated from Spring Valley.
Okay.
You then went to Morehouse, and you graduated from Morehouse. So how was that experience for you, and why was it important to attend the HBCU?
To me, it was going to Morehouse was a great experience. I had a great high school experience at Spring Valley, and everything that we did growing up in high school, was great during that time period. But going to HBCU was a different experience because me getting to go to another city, a bigger city like Atlanta, and just meeting people from all over, the country that come from different places, and everybody just, going to a new city and getting to know new friends. And I had a great set of friends, back in South Carolina, and got another great set of friends in Morehouse, and being able to just be in the HBCU environment to where you're getting so much love and nurturing, and all the teachers, care about you and the success, and teaching you more about your heritage than you would typically learn in a public high school setting, a public school setting at all. So it was just a great experience, and getting to have a great high school experience and then getting to have a great college experience was just, icing on the cake.
Yes. And so being in Atlanta and being in a bigger city, and then thoughts of what you're going to do once you graduate, did you work for a corporate company prior to?
Not really. When I was at Morehouse, I actually worked at Six Flags. I worked at telemarketing place, just different jobs like that, just saving money. And I always wanted to go into business because that was just something that I just felt like was just in me. I always wanted to go into business, but my plan was to go to Morehouse, major in biology, go to med school, become a doctor, save my money, and then open up a business.
Dang.
But that was my original plan. But after taking those science classes in Morehouse, and G-Bio and plant science, I just couldn't take it because I never really was interested in that. About I think halfway through my sophomore year, I decided just to change my major to business.
Wow.
So I changed my major to business then. I really enjoyed the classes. I felt right at home. And a friend of mine, a guy named Mark Wise, unfortunately his father passed away, left him some money, and he started investing in the stock market. Oh, wow. So I was watching what he was doing, kind of learning, from him, and I started reading some books, doing some research myself. And I actually had a credit card, so I did the balance transfer off one of my credit cards. I took the money that I'd been saving from working my part-time jobs. I had also just got a scholarship from Brian Gumble for $10,000.
Nice.
But I went to summer school twice, so I was kind of ahead, so I didn't have any payments due. So I took that money, put that in the stock market as well, and I actually invested in Yahoo back in 1998 because everybody in my business department was using the internet, and Yahoo was the biggest name out there then.
Wow, okay.
So the money I put in Yahoo up, then about 6 months later, all the internet stocks kind of took off. Wow. So I went from having maybe $15,000 to having 60 or 70 just because the stocks have done so well. So I took that money and I started researching different franchises and seeing who I could get in business with as a franchise. Right. And I actually was going to open up a cookie store at first because I felt like that'd be an easy operation, not too hard to manage the inventory. And I met with Mrs. Fields Cookie Company, and they said, why don't you come up to D.C.? We got a location in Pentagon City Mall that'd be a great location for you. And at the time, I was still in college, was still partying and having fun, and I really didn't want to go up there, but something told me just go up there and meet with the people. Yeah. So I got a little $29 flight on Value Jet back then, which ended up turning into AirTran, because, your college back then, you can fly for $29, one way, so.
Ooh, inflation, y'all, inflation.
Right, inflation. So I flew up to Pentagon City Mall, met with them, and they were like, this would be a great location. It's a Champs right here doing $2 million in sales, and there's an Athlete's Foot on the other side doing $2.3 million. So this would be a great place for it. And I was like, wow, I ain't no shoes sold like that.
Wow.
And, and I always been in the tennis shoes and playing sports and the Jordans and all of that. So my plane trip back, I was flipping through this franchising magazine and I found the Athlete's Foot, that they actually offered franchises in the footwear industry. Mm-hmm. So when I came home, I called the Athlete's Foot. I met them and had an initial a discovery meeting with them, and they were interested. And so I went home, wrote a business plan. I scoped out some different locations, and I met them again at the Candler Road. At the Red Lobster on Candler Road. And I said, I want to put my store in this area. So we looked around, and they said, Isom, back in the days, we never would have thought of a location like this, but hey, if you want to try it, we'll go with you. So I wrote a business plan, got a loan. My parents mortgaged their house, lent me some money. My grandma mortgaged their house, lent me some money, and I got a loan for another $125,000 for writing a business plan. So I took all that together and opened one store in Decatur on June 26, 1999. That store did well. Took money from that store, paid everybody back, paid my mom and dad back, paid my grandma back, bought my dad a new car, bought my mom a new car prior to that, and then I just started reinvesting in other stores. Wow. So I've been in business almost 23 years, and during that time I've actually opened 39 Athlete's Foot locations, and I opened one, ironically, Great American Cookie store and a pretzel maker. So I've just been in the business, done that, and in 2013 City Gear approached me about purchasing some of the stores, so I ended up selling all the stores I had at that time except two to City Gear, and I went back down to 2 locations and opened 7 more since then. So now I currently operate 9 Athlete's Foot locations.
I feel like I just had a whole lesson on investing and the importance of knowing when to get in and get out. Right. And that's not something necessarily that can be taught. Right. As much as it is about being mentored into what to look for, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely. Like, investing in the stock market, it's something I was always interested in. It's something that, many people have been doing for years. Yep. And you really have to, especially if you're, young people, is good to get involved in because they don't have a whole lot of responsibility. Right. And they have time. And I feel like when you're investing, that's the greatest asset is time. Wow. Because the stock market goes up and down, but over history, in time, it's always continued to go up. So I always just try to look for good companies with solid foundations, even though I was, more risky investing in the internet when it first started, but I didn't have nothing to lose at the time. But now I find, good companies with solid reputations, like Microsoft, Nike, things you may use on a regular basis, or newer companies like Airbnb. Yeah. I invest in, Ferrari, companies that have great brand names, solid reputations. Right. Those are the companies I look for when I invest now, but I do feel like investing is a good thing. Yes. And even if you're too risk adverse to invest, in at least saving. And everybody should have a good saving regimen, being able to save money. Because over time, even if you're saving a small amount of money, that money builds up over time. Yeah. And if you're investing, you have a chance to, get an even greater return.
Exactly. And everybody is not necessarily going to be good in entrepreneurship. Right. But what do you say to people who want to be a part-time entrepreneur? Do you feel like they can be just as successful if they're not in it full-time?
Yeah, I think so. I think that everybody, even if you're not per se an entrepreneur in the traditional sense, I feel like everybody, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a fireman, doctor, whatever, I feel like everybody is a business. It's all about how you manage what you make compared to what you spend. Yep. So even running your life in some form on a financial end is a business, and a lot of people just tend to live above their means, so you could be making $10 million a year and live above your means, and you could be making, $30,000 a year and managing your money properly and still comfortable. Because at the end of the day, what you really want is peace of mind. And you only have peace of mind financially if you're managing, the money that you're making properly. So that's my whole thing. Whatever you're doing, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're, an employee or whatever you're doing, just make sure to manage how much you're spending, how much you're saving. And it's hard because, we're all busy in our lives and we never want to sit down and actually just do a budget. Right. I'm guilty myself. Yeah. I mean, you always constantly prioritizing what I got to do next, what I got to do next, what I got to do next. And sometimes you fail to just organize. Yeah. But just organizing, cutting time out to say, okay, this is how much I'm making. Okay, I want to invest this much, or I want to save my money and maybe, buy a rental property and, become an entrepreneur. It's all about preparation and discipline. You have to prepare. And when I say prepare, I mean do the research, whatever company, whatever entrepreneur idea you have. 9 times out of 10, there's somebody out there doing it already. So research them, see what they're doing right, see what they're doing wrong, and you can go do the same thing somewhere else. But it all starts in just being disciplined in how you manage your finances.
Yes. And I like to also tell people that failure is a part of the formula. Right. So what was a failure that you had throughout this course of being an entrepreneur that was one of the biggest lessons for you?
I would say, number one, you're right. Any entrepreneur, anybody who's been in business long enough, if they tell you they've never failed at something or something didn't go right, they probably just not telling the truth, because over time you just are. Yep. And I know when I started my business and, the economy was great, gas prices, you can get a gallon of gas for 88 cents at the racetrack. I mean, it was, the economy was just way better then. Right, so I got a great location. I did a lot of research, so I had instant success. Yeah. And I just started growing, opening stores. And I remember a guy from Athletes for Corporate, a guy named Marty Antler, he had set me down. He said, Isom, I know you the golden boy right now, everything you touch and turn into gold. But he said, I'm telling you, man, you need to slow down. You're going to turn around one day and have 20 stores, and you're going to realize you was making the same amount of money with 5. That's what he told me. And I was like, oh, nah, he's just talking, this is that. Then I turned around, opening stores. I opened 9 stores in 2003. Turn around, I think it was right when the economy started going bad, I was up to like 20-something stores. Wow. And all of a sudden, all this money I made, I reinvested into building this big shoe empire. Then the economy started going like this. So now it's like, I built this thing. Yep. Now I'm turning around trying to hold it up. Yes. From growing so fast. And when I was growing, the economy was so good. Yep. I thought it was always like that. But so when gas go from 88 cents, now it's $3.50. That constantly sucks money out of the economy. Yes. And when they say that the real estate crisis happened and that subprime, it was never a real estate crisis. What happened is that price of the pump kept going up and it was sucking money out of people's pockets. And the reason people didn't realize that, because you don't get a bill for it at the end of the month. If people got a bill at the end of the month for how much gas affects them, we've been with a march on Washington about it. Damn. But it's like a silent financial killer because you don't get a bill for it at the end of the month. And that's why you saw subprime didn't happen first. Because whether you make $100,000 a year or $10 an hour, everybody still pays the same price at the pump. So when those gas prices were going up, it hurt the lower income people first. And who has subprime mortgages? Lower income people usually. So that's why you saw subprime lending crisis happen. Then it trickled up to everybody. Then middle class people were losing their houses. Then it was just a housing crisis. What it really was, that gas just sucked money out of the economy and it slowly started affecting everyone. So
is that a cycle you think we're going to see this time around?
This time around, people are more aware of that. You know what I'm saying? Wow, so now people are making a fuss about the gas already. Right. Because that really is that affects the economy like nothing I've ever seen in the 23 years I've been in the business, gas prices. Wow. So with me growing so fast, then the gas prices growing at the same time, the economy went from good to bad. Yeah. So then I was struggling trying to keep everything together. I had to sell a few, not sell a few, I had to close a few stores and, had to really cut down on the inventory. And really had to, you back out in the ocean trying to, trying to stay afloat. Yep. So I'll say the biggest mistake I made at one time was just growing too fast. Yeah. Not being prepared for when the economy actually turns.
So in the franchising business, do you have built-in mentors to say, like you said, the gentleman that was a part of the franchise to give you the advice he gave you? Is it built-in mentors that kind of give you information?
Well, in most franchise organizations, that's kind of the concept of it, that you have a franchisor and they have experience and maybe you have other franchisees that you could talk to. So that's kind of the structure. And it does work like that in an ideal situation.
Yep.
But people are people.
That's right.
You got some franchisees who won't tell you nothing at all. You know what I'm saying? Some franchisees
Right.
see a competition,
Yeah.
and you have someone to tell you everything.
Yeah.
But typically that is how it works. It's supposed to be built-in mentorship from the franchise company and from the other franchisees if they choose to help you or not.
Yeah.
And the franchisor, they do what they can, but like with any corporation, you got people coming and going. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And some of the people, they don't know what you know, because you actually been doing it and they just got hired from another corporation. So, but for the most part, there is some mentorship that's supposed to be involved in most franchise organizations.
So what are the cons to being a franchisee is there are certain rules and obligations you have to abide by.
Right.
Do you think that has hurt you versus going into having a business where you're not under that umbrella?
Yeah, it's pros and cons with anything, and with a franchise organization, there are some of those cons.
Yeah.
Because you're under franchisor, they do have rules, and we want this to be displayed this way, and we want the sign to look that way. So it is some things that some guidelines you're gonna have to follow. But for the most part, if you're working with a smart franchisor, they'll always kind of bend and adjust, especially when they have a successful franchisee who's proven themselves.
Yep.
If they're smart, they'll be open-minded about things that you bring to the table, because really what they're supposed to do is help you be successful, because the more successful the franchisee is, the more successful the franchisor is.
Yeah.
And a smart franchisor will listen to the franchisees, especially the successful ones with experience, and they'll help shape their policies based off of what the franchisees have had success with.
Yeah.
But it all depends on who's running the show at the time. You got some people who are open-minded and some people who not. It just depends on the person.
Yeah. So do you have the interest in doing any other type of franchises outside of the whole sneaker business, or are you kind of good with riding this wave?
Well, I do some real estate, and I'm always looking at different businesses. I'm also co-owner of a competition cheerleading club called Atlanta Elite All Stars.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Vanessa and Cherion, too. The girls I told you that I raised, they started off cheering at that club when they went to elementary school, and they cheered all the way till they went to college. And a gentleman who owns the club, me and him spoke, and he wanted to, he's looking for a good partner, signed up partner with him. So now I actually own part of the cheerleading organization as well. So yeah, we're trying to grow that program, and so I dibble and dab in a few different things, but I'm always open. But for the most part, that's what I've been in, is the shoe business.
Awesome. And you made mention of your daughters, and one thing I think is so phenomenal about you, Isom, is taking on kids and raising them.
Right.
Tell me about your kids that you took on and literally have raised up to the point to where they're now in college.
Yeah.
And what influenced that? Was that something you've always wanted to do, or was it just something in your heart that nudged on you to say, "Hey, I want to raise some kids that are not technically biologically mine"?
Yeah. Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I was around them from their moms working for me, and when I had my office downtown.
Yeah.
Just all of us being around each other, so much, and you develop bonds with the children, and it's almost like you feel like, okay, these kids could use a strong father figure, and you grow this bond with them, and all of a sudden you become that father figure for them, and as you just time goes by, you just become attached to them. And you realize you could you could play an important role in their life, and you just accept that. And I've raised Cherion, Vanessa, and Dre since they were 1, 2, and 3. Now they're 19, 20, 21, and Dre was at Morehouse. Vanessa's right now at FAMU, and Cherion's right now at Howard, and they all enjoying themselves. And it's been a blessing, to be able to have them three, to have my own biological children.
Yes.
Have a 3-year-old daughter, 1-year-old son, a 6-year-old stepson. And just to be able to play a part in all of their lives just brings me joy, because I've always loved kids, and kids keep you young. And I realized, most of all of my stores have been in the inner city.
Yes.
And it's an unfortunate fact that over 50% of African American kids either don't know their father or have no meaningful relationship with them. Over 50% of African American kids have no meaningful relationship with their dad. So it's like, it's a real void out there for men to, who God has blessed, because, the old saying, too much is given, much is required.
Truly.
So God's blessed you and given you an opportunity, why not take your blessings and change somebody else's lives? So that's all, because that's what I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
Real change and really changing somebody's lives. I'm not knocking the turkey drives and the toys at Christmas, but to really change somebody's life, you got to actually be in their life, not just material, wise.
Whew. That's huge though. That's not common.
Right.
It's not common, and it speaks a lot to your heart. And to be able to make that kind of impact on somebody's life and turn around, be married, a beautiful wife, and have your own kids, like that's a responsibility that most men will run away from. But you actually embraced it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's true. Most men unfortunately would run away from that. I mean, because a lot of men, they raising their own kids, but there are a few out there, and I got other friends, who are kind of doing something similar, and it's just I think that's what it takes.
Yes.
Somebody stepping out the box and doing something different.
Yep.
Like what Deion Sanders is doing now there, Jackson State. Just making a change. To make a change, you have to do something that most people wouldn't do.
Yep.
Just like Deion, somebody his caliber, they would be running to the NFL, trying to be an NFL coach, or trying to be involved in this and that. But he ran to HBCU and said, "I can make a difference here."
Exactly.
So I think that's what it takes. Just stepping outside the box and doing something that most people just wouldn't do.
So because this climate is different than how it was when you first started into entrepreneurship, what advice would you give to some of these young people? They got the internet, they got access that you didn't have to the degree in which they have it, but there is still some common things and some advice that will never go out of style that some of these young people need to know. What would you say to them?
Right, and that's a great question. One thing just like you said, they have access now.
Yeah.
I advise everybody to go to HBCU if you have the opportunity to.
Yeah.
But anything you want to know informationally, you could Google it.
Yeah.
I mean, you really could research any industry, any field. You can find out anything you want to find out, but you have to have the discipline and you have to know who to follow, because with the internet, it's pros and cons.
Yes.
It's a lot of bad influences out there, but it's also information out there if you seek to find that information.
Yep.
It's also a great time for entrepreneurship. When we were growing up, and we were in high school, everybody had to have on Tommy Hilfiger, polo, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But now, especially in the big city, people are more open to wearing what looks good. It could be a local brand. It could be this, it could be that.
Yep.
So it's a great time for entrepreneurship.
Yep.
Because you have access. You can start a Instagram page, a Facebook page, a YouTube channel, and promote whatever product you have.
And make money.
So it's a prime time for people to get into entrepreneurship, because the barriers of entry to certain things are lower because of the internet.
Yep.
It costs nothing for a Facebook page. It costs nothing for an Instagram page. It costs nothing for, very inexpensive to set up a website.
Yes.
So you do have a lower barrier to entry to actually get your message out, whatever that message is.
Yep.
Save your money. Credit. That's one thing that I don't feel like they talk enough about in school. Managing your credit. Even when you're in college, you get all these flyers in the mail from these credit card companies. You turn 18. If no one tells you, look, that's not free money. You have to pay this back. You have to pay that back. That's another thing I stress when I talk to younger people. Keep your credit good.
Yeah.
If you get a credit card, which you should when you turn 18, to help build your credit, whatever you buy on there, put that money to the side and pay it off at the end of the month. Because I tell people, if you have bad credit, it's going to be more expensive for you to live. That same car that may cost that other guy $299 a month going to cost you $400 a month if your credit is bad.
Facts.
So those are some things I would say. Use the information around you.
Yep.
Save some money by managing your finances properly. Keep your credit good.
Yep.
And don't be afraid to ask. Some of us as well, as a race, black people, how we're prideful.
Very.
A lot of times we want to act like we know this, we know that. I'm telling some of the most successful people I've been around, they ask you so many questions, you can't even get a question out. Even though they may be more successful than you, they're trying to get the little bit of information or knowledge that you have that they don't have.
Yep.
And that's how they become, people call it smarter, but they just gain more knowledge.
Knowledge is wealth in every sense of the word.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I would say. Don't be afraid to ask. Some people will tell you everything. Some people may not tell you anything, but you have to humble yourself sometimes and be like, look, I heard you doing this. I heard you doing that. I would love to pick your brain for a minute. There's nothing wrong with doing it.
Yeah.
So those are some pointers I would give to anybody aspiring to be, an entrepreneur.
I'm so proud to know this man. These nuggets that was dropped today. It has been an honor.
Yeah, no, thank you.
So it has been such an honor, and this is like 20 plus years
Right.
of knowing each other and feeling like family, and just having the opportunity to sit down and talk to you, because I have been watching from afar.
Yeah.
And the only knowledge I had about what you had going on was either through word of mouth before the internet became big, and before Facebook became big.
Right.
And then now I get an opportunity to have a front row seat to your scripted narrative, because nobody knows everything you got going on.
Right.
But just a little bit I get to see, it's a blessing. So thank you for being part of the
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Anytime you need me, I'm always here.
Yes. Clap it up for Mr. Isom Lowman.
Yeah, thank you.